Lovecraftian horror is a subgenre of horror, fantasy, and weird fiction that focuses on the fear of the unknown and incomprehensible. It's named after American author H.P. Lovecraft, who's considered the father of cosmic horror and weird fiction. In this video, we'll check out some of the scariest monsters of Lovecraftian horror. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. Now, this is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Cthulhu. Cthulhu is perhaps one of the most popular and bizarre creatures in the entire cosmic horror created by H.P. Lovecraft. He first appeared in the short story The Call of Cthulhu, published in 1928, described as this gigantic, ancient fellow with lots of raw power. Coming from the depths of space, Cthulhu remains locked beneath the Pacific Ocean, housed in his underwater metropolis, Aurelier. It's sort of human shaped, but its head is this crazy octopus bunch of tentacles. Its body is all scales, and even has wings that look like a dragon's. Honestly, just looking at it is enough to make you lose your mind. The creature's psychic abilities make it uniquely horrifying. Cthulhu can invade the dreams of humans with madness and despair. This psychic influence extends globally, affecting individuals and cults who worship the entity, often leading them to commit heinous acts in its name. More importantly, the presence of Cthulhu really makes us question our reality and our place in the universe. It really puts into perspective how tiny human life is in the big cosmic scheme of things is key to Lovecraftian horror. The thought that this super powerful evil being can pop up any second to wreak havoc in the world really sends chills down one's spine. So, Cthulhu in Lovecraft's universe is an ancient being, part of a pantheon of godlike beings that were before humans even set down on this earth. Creatures like this are normally too indifferent or hostile toward us, and just their existence upsets the natural order. Cthulhu is huge in this entire mythos. It indeed features the theme of cosmic horror and that feeling of existential dread so present in Lovecraft's stories. Cthulhu really messes with people and mankind in general. In case you encounter the monster or its worshippers, you most probably will be left badly damaged psychologically, go berserk, or even die. The Cthulhu cult is this subtle, well-spread group of followers who want to speed up the awakening of this entity, believing that when it eventually returns, there will be a new wild era of disarray and mayhem. Nyarlathotep, also known as the Crawling Chaos, is a major deity in the mythos of H.P. Lovecraft. Unlike many of Lovecraft's other gods, Nyarlathotep isn't bound to one shape or figure. No, he's a shapeshifter capable of taking on an infinite number of forms, all more hideous and grotesque than the last. His favorite form is a tall, dark, ominous figure. Nyarlathotep first appeared in Lovecraft's prose poem Nyarlathotep, 1920, where he's depicted as a harbinger of doom, spreading madness and despair wherever he goes. Nyarlathotep's most terrifying trait is his ability to manipulate and deceive. Whereas other Lovecraftian monsters are frequently mindless or apathetic towards mankind, Nyarlathotep is both clever and evil. He delights in driving humans to insanity, using his shape-shifting abilities to appear as a trusted figure or a charismatic leader. It makes him extra scary in that he can invade human society and control it from the inside. His powers are not limited to mere illusion. He can also induce hallucinations, control minds, and summon aliens. Nyarlathotep in Lovecraftian mythology is the messenger and enforcer of the outer gods, Azathoth, Yog-Sothoth, etc., etc. Unlike many other gods who are either mindless or apathetic, Nyarlathotep is very active in the affairs of the cosmos and mankind. He is the intermediary between the chaotic outer gods and humanity, and he's usually the first one contacted by those who delve too far into the forbidden knowledge. Azathoth, often referred to as the blind idiot god or the nuclear chaos, is a primordial deity in the mythos created by H.P. Lovecraft. No one knows where Azathoth came from, but it's usually described as the center of the universe, a formless mass of writhing tentacles and bubbling protoplasm. It is said to reside at the center of all infinity, where it's surrounded by a horde of lesser deities who incessantly play maddening, dissonant music to keep it in a state of perpetual slumber. The myth of Azathoth is primarily known from Lovecraft's works, including the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath and the Whisperer in Darkness. Azathoth's most terrifying trait is its sheer incomprehensibility and the existential dread it embodies. Unlike other deities or monsters that have a form or purpose, Azathoth is a mindless, chaotic force. It's described as an entity of immense power, capable of obliterating entire universes without any conscious thought or intention. It's this lack of consciousness and intent that makes Azathoth so uniquely terrifying, a god that transcends the boundaries of good and evil, reason and insanity. Its existence existence defies any logic of an orderly, purposeful world, instead implies a universe controlled by meaningless, apathetic chaos. It's usually represented as a boiling, roiling mass of tentacles and eyes, always flowing, moving, and changing. This thing is a hideous sight can't be reasoned with. Another aspect of its horror is the continuous grating music that the servitors play, producing an ambience of non-stop, senseless anarchy. Azathoth is the most supreme being in Lovecraft's mythos. It's often regarded as the core of all creation, the center of the universe. Despite its mindlessness, Azathoth's existence has a profound impact on the cosmos and the beings within it. The lesser deities that surround it, such as Nyarlathotep, indicating that even the gods fear the consequences of its awakening. The world is run by a cold, chaotic force. This revelation often leads characters to existential despair, questioning the meaning and purpose of their lives in a cosmos devoid of order and reason. Shub-Niggurath. Shub-Niggurath is actually one of the major entities that catalyzed H.P. Lovecraft's mythology. It's mainly in his tales, besides the literary followers of Lovecraft's mythos, that this eldritch deity is known. Shub-Niggurath is a cosmic entity of immense power and often represents the perverse fertility goddess. Her origins are obscure, but her name frequently appears whenever any dark ritual or forbidden cult is mentioned. The Shub-Niggurath is said to be a writhing mass of tentacles, mouths, and other strange appendages that are exquisitely large. Most of the terrifying features of Shub-Niggurath include those of a grotesque, ever-changing form in complete denial of the natural order, enveloping humans with a primeval, irrational fear of the unknown. This, added to the fact that she can spawn sequelae hordes of monstrous offspring, referred to as the Thousand Young. These offspring are often portrayed as being normally hideous and tentacled abominations serving her will. Shub-Niggurath would more often than not be surrounded by unmitigated dread and corruption, since she symbolized the perversion of natural life and fertility. It's impossible to understand her powers in scope, ranging from reality warps to manipulations of minds coming into contact with her. Shub-Niggurath is among the Great Old Ones, a class of deities that are older than humanity itself and exist completely outside of what mortal minds can comprehend. She's normally worshipped by cults who tend to gain her favor with dark rituals and sacrifices in her name. The influence of Shub-Niggurath extends across the cosmos, and her presence can be felt in many dimensions and realities. Her role as a fertility goddess is a sexual inversion of natural life, fully representing the chaotic and destructive aspect of creation. Encounters with her or her offspring often lead to madness, corruption, and death, highlighting how inconsequential and helpless humanity is before such ancient and malevolent forces. Her existence resolutely calls into question the very cornerstones of human cognition and morality, forcing the characters to confront the terrifying possibility. Shoggoth. The Shoggoth is the creation of H.P. Lovecraft's mind, mostly known through his novella At the Mountains of Madness. Originally, they were created by the Elder Things as a biological substitute for labor. Shoggoths are huge, amorphous blobs of the protoplasmic substance capable of forming eyes, mouths, and other organs at will. Their appearance is both fluid and chaotic, in the manner of a twisting mass of gelatinous material that could change shape and size at will. Most fearsome of the Shoggoth's traits, however, is its amorphous nature, pure and simple, which allows it to change shape at will into whatever can help the creature surmount obstacles or threats. Of course, this would give rise to its changing shape at any moment, thus rendering nearly impossible any predictive attempt at effective combat. Added to this, Shoggoths have immense strength and can move with terrifying speed, despite their gigantic size. The fact that they could have multiple eyes and mouths formed only makes them more grotesque, an abomination, and makes them an awful sight to look at. Another chilling fact about Shoggoths is their intelligence. Conceived since the beginning as mindless slaves, over time, Shoggoths developed some sort of sentience and rebelled against their creators, the Elder Things. The rebellion would mean that behind them is cunningness with a malevolent intent to make them yet again more dangerous. That they can imitate sounds, including human speech, adds to the terror factor, since they could create a cacophony of voices to disorient and frighten their victims. Shoggoths present both symbolic and literal values of the dangers of unregulated scientific and technological advancement. In a sense, the Elder Things, with their pride and arrogance, created the Shoggoths as laborers to be overthrown by those very creations. This gives rise to the cautionary narrative against the perils of godlike gameplay that may arise from creation without thinking through the ethical implications. Shoggoths also realize another major Lovecraftian theme: the insignificance and futility of humans faced with such ancient cosmic terrors. Their life form predates humanity, and their rebellion against the Elder Things suggests that even the most advanced and powerful beings are not immune to the chaos and capriciousness of the universe. This again consolidates the idea that humanity is but a small, fragile part of a much larger, uncaring cosmos. Shoggoths are considerations of existential threats regarding character and humanity. As such, At the Mountains of Madness shows an expeditionary team examples of dangers that might still lurk in breadth and areas unsurveyed by man. Dagon. Dagon is a sea deity in H.P. Lovecraft's mythos, first introduced to the reader in the 1919 short story Dagon. The creature depicted was of colossal size, an amphibious entity with humanoid form, having covered scales with webbed hands and feet. Its head was all but fish-like, having bulging eyes and a gaping maw full of sharp teeth. Dagon, a deep one, some kind of race in the sea that had been converted previously and before humankind. The story of Dagon is mostly known through works by Lovecraft, where Dagon is mainly the forerunner of all doom and the unknown horrors lurking below the sea. The most terrifying features of Dagon are its enormous size and its ancient alien nature. Standing at an unimaginable height, Dagon dwarfs any human in a way that instills insignificance into the individual entity that is the person encountering. Being an amphibious creature, Dagon traverses both land and sea, making it an inescapable terror. Its imagery alone is capable of driving any individual into insanity. Its grotesque fish-like features and the aura of ancient malevolence it exudes. But its powers are just as terrible. It summons storms and plays with the tides of the ocean, causing wrecks and catastrophes on coasts. This creature influences the Deep Ones, creatures that worship this monster as a god and duly perform its will. These minions can infiltrate human society, spreading Dagon's influence and terror from within. That such a monster might lurk beneath the ocean surface, waiting to rise and cause mayhem, taps deep into fears of the unknown and uncontrollable nature. Dagon represents one of those old primordial gods who predate human civilization. This creature is associated with the Deep One's underwater race, as they worship him along with another ancient cosmic being, Cthulhu. Adding Dagon into the mythos further shows how little human beings are compared to the universe. It suggests that in the universe exist several highly ancient, mighty creatures who have outlived humanity by a long period and will survive humanity by many thousands of years. The impact Dagon has on the characters and humanity is very deep. A resulting encounter with the creature is often a dive into madness and complete despair, an apparent loss of grip on reality. Knowledge of Dagon and its worshippers can corrupt whole communities, and the cults become entertained by performing dark rituals and sacrifices in the name of the sea god. This corruption and the succeeding decay in society reflect the picture of human civilization's fragility and the ever-imminent threat of chaos and destruction. The Deep Ones. The Deep Ones are a humanoid amphibian race originating from works by H.P. Lovecraft, most well known due to the novella The Shadow over Innsmouth. These beings are described as having fleshy skin, mixing fish, frogs, and humankind. They sport scaly skin that's slick in texture, bulging eyes, and gills along the sides of their necks, which let them be aquatic and terrestrial at the same time. Add their webbed hands and feet, pointed claws, and teeth into the mix, and they immediately become highly threatening creatures in appearance. Deep Ones are believed to reside in underwater cities. Among the most famous is the fabled Unspeakable, said to be situated beneath the sea surface of Innsmouth. But in fact, it's their behaviors and powers that turn them into terrifying creatures. They were immortal, living for hundreds of years without aging, a trait making them impossible to weed out. The interbreeding with human beings produced hybrid offspring who would transform into Deep Ones with the advance of age, something horrific and not to be passed down. Because the worst is that the Deep Ones conspire. They want, through infiltrating human societies, to spread their influence and numbers. This often occurs in the form of secret, hidden cults worshipping ancient deities such as Dagon and Mother Hydra, to which the Deep Ones show obedience. They conduct dark rituals, laden with human sacrifices, spreading fear and corruption even more. The Deep Ones are capable of silent telepathic communication, which allows them to coordinate their actions, making them much stronger adversaries. They serve as agents for ancient cosmic deities. The contacts of the Deep Ones with humans often result in a profusion of previously undisclosed truths concerning the universe that can drive a person to madness. The awful revelation of being a Deep One himself is coupled in The Shadow over Innsmouth with the realization of unavoidable transformation by the protagonist. This horror is personal compared to the large-scale threat of the Deep Ones against human civilization. Their ability to penetrate and corrupt human societies acts as a metaphor for the insidious nature of evils hidden from view and for the precariousness of the human order. Migo. The Migo, also fungi from Yuggoth, are extraterrestrial organisms hailing from the faraway planet Yuggoth, which has been considered to correspond with that of the dwarf planet Pluto. These beings form part of the most widespread of H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, first appearing in his short story The Whisperer in Darkness, published in 1931. The Migo are described therein as huge, fungus, crustacean-like entities with a no less alien appearance. Their anatomy is complicated. A large number of appendages, wings, and a head that highly resembles a mass of antennae and sensory organs. Their bodies are sheathed by a chitinous exoskeleton, and they're capable of flying through the vacuum of space using their membranous wings. But what makes Migo so terrifying is for many factors, mainly big leads in technology and the fact that they have absolutely no regard for human life. They can perform such feats as complicated surgical operations, including extracting and preserving human brains, which they store in special canisters. These canisters keep the brains conscious and communicating, often for things like interstellar travel or other nefarious experiments. The surgery and manipulation of human consciousness conducted by the Migo are disconcerting because they literally rob one of his humanity, reducing a human being to a mere specimen for their studied analysis. The Migo are indeed intrinsically terrifying in appearance. Silent, flying, fungoid, insect-like bodies in the night are built on the archetype of one basic fear of things unknown and grotesque. Their alien nature is also consistently expressed through their use of an unearthly language that none have learned to pronounce, furthering mystery upon them as alien menaces. They're often cast in the roles of scientists or explorers, experimenting on Earth and its normal inhabitants. Their existence within the Cthulhu mythos underlines this basic cosmic horror, a canvas upon which humanity is small and unimportant, nothing more than a passing thought. The Migo represents the utmost violation of personal autonomy and the fragility of the human mind. Often, when the characters of a story meet the Migo in an existential dread manner, they're faced with beings whose knowledge and capabilities far exceed the human understanding of the times. The capability to travel across the cosmos by Migo and manipulate at will is a stark reminder of a vast, uncaring universe that Lovecraft wrote about most of the time. Hounds of Tindalos. The Hounds of Tindalos are entities from the mythos of H.P. Lovecraft that first appeared in Frank Belknap Long's 1931 short story, The Hounds of Tindalos. These beings are not from our universe at all, but stem from the distant past, from a realm outside of what one would consider the conventional flow of time and space. They are predatory interdimensional beings that traverse the angles of time, as opposed to the most general pattern of entities who make their movement through the curves of time. In appearance, the Hounds are most frequently said to be vaguely canine, but with a grotesque accent. These creatures would have a very extended, emaciated body with skin over their skeletal frameworks. Their eyes glow with an eerie, malevolent light, while their mouths are filled with sharp, needle-like teeth. The terrors of ancient malevolence emanate from the Hounds, no doubt sending running any such poor soul upon whom they would happen to lay their glance. What makes the Hounds of Tindalos uniquely terrifying is the transcendence they can exercise over the normal bounds of time and space. Therefore, they can materialize through any angle, and hence are not to be outrun or avoided. Their power of sudden appearance from every angular surface would suggest that they hunt their prey across dimensions and timelines, becoming unstoppable and omnipresent hunters. But the most terrifying feature about them is their hunting method. Once they've targeted someone, they'll pursue them relentlessly across the angles of time to hunt them down. That makes them almost impossible to evade, since at any instant in time they may appear from any angular surface. The pursuit is ruled by an insatiable hunger for the life force of their victims, which they drain completely, leaving behind only a desiccated husk. Moreover, the Hounds are outside the pale of conventional weapons and defenses because they partially exist outside our reality. This makes them almost invulnerable to most forms of attack, further adding to the terror they inspire. Their mere presence is enough to drive people who cross them mad, since the human mind isn't fitted to comprehend their existence. With the Hound's ability to travel through time and space, they prove to be a great danger to any character who would delve too deeply into forbidden knowledge or try to manipulate time. More often than not, when the Hounds appear in a story, it's a dire consequence of movement against the natural order of the universe. This makes them enforcers of cosmic law, punishing those who dare explore the hidden angles of time. Gug. The Gug is one more of the monster creatures born from the mind of H.P. Lovecraft, which he created for his story The Dream Quest of Unknown Kada. These live in the underworld area of the Dreamlands, a wonderful and terrible world normally used by Lovecraft for a number of his writings. Gugs are described as towering, grotesque beings standing roughly 20 feet tall. They have a roughly humanoid shape, but are quite inhumane in appearance. Their heads are cylindrical, with a mouth running up and down the middle of their faces, with lines of pointed teeth that resemble needles. The eyes are small small bead-like, adding to the menace. Gogs possess long, muscular arms that end in claws and are covered in coarse, bristly hair. By far, the most frightening characteristics of the Gug concern its gigantic size and sheer physical strength. The Gugs tower to 20 feet tall and can accomplish huge amounts of physical damage. Their mouths, oriented vertically with razor-sharp teeth, could tear through flesh and bone with ease. Equally as dangerous, the claws on their long arms can rend their prey apart. Gogs also have this infamous unquenchable thirst for human flesh, making them quite relentless predators. Their appearance alone is enough to invoke fear, but it's their behavior that consecrates the entire being of a Gug. Gugs aren't just mindless beasts, they are cunning hunters, able to stalk their quarry with a terrifying level of intelligence. Their existence in the dark labyrinthine tunnels of the underworld add an element of claustrophobic horror, since from these relentless monsters there's no easy escape. The Gugs once lived in the surface world, but had been condemned to the underworld by the gods due to their blasphemous practices and cannibalistic tendencies. This, in turn, gives them a backstory filled with ancient taboo knowledge, turning them from simple monsters into at least partial symbols of forbidden knowledge from a bygone era. Better left alone. Many characters who have faced Gugs have been scarred, physically or mentally, by the event. The existence of the Gugs challenges the understanding of reality and the place of the characters in the universe, leading mostly to overwhelming insignificance and helplessness. Night Gaunts. The Night Gaunts are faceless, eerie creatures created by H.P. Lovecraft and are primarily known from his dream cycle stories, especially the story The Dream Quest of Unknown Ghasts. They have smooth, rubbery black skin, bat-like wings, and long barbed tails. Their face is featureless, adding to their generally unsettling appearance. Their hands are fitted with long claw-like fingers, perfect for grasping and carrying their prey. The Night Gaunt is commonly depicted as silent and quick, flitting through the air with an eldritch grace. What's worse is that Night Gaunts have no faces, which would take away anything of their characteristics of humanness and present them merely as pure, malevolent forces. This silence is just as scaring, since it doesn't speak or utter any noise. Even when it attacks or carries its victims, it still doesn't utter one word. It's this silence that often sends their prey into madness, since the quietness against them would mean that one would never anticipate their movements or intentions. Mostly, the Night Gaunts were quick and silent flyers, very often seizing their victims from the ground and whisking them away to some ghastly, unreachable location. Long and barbed, their tails were said to tickle into submission, an ugly and terrifying form of incapacitation that does little but render their victims helpless and terrified. Combining physical prowess with psychological torment, the Night Gaunts are uniquely terrifying. In the lore of Lovecraft, Night Gaunts act as guardians and tormentors within the skies and dark places of the Dreamlands, this great surreal landscape that exists parallel to the more mundane reality. More often than not, their purpose is patrolling the skies and dark places of the Dreamlands, particularly the dreaded plateau of Leng and the peaks of Unknown Ghasts. Their presence is an ongoing threat to those dreamers who venture too far into these forbidden realms. They are agents of the outer gods and great old ones, acquiescing to these cosmic beings without ever a question. It's their faceless and silent existence that symbolizes the incomprehensible nature of the world and the insignificance of humanity inside it. They remind the character and reader alike that there are forces beyond human understanding or control, lurking just beyond the veil of reality. The influences they have on characters run deep. Upon encountering a Night Gaunt, some go out of their minds, and others develop an existential fear of the unseen. They serve as grim reminders of the vulnerability of the human mind and its confrontation with the true nature of the cosmos. Ghasts. Ghasts are a nightmare of things emerging from H.P. Lovecraft's mind, known primarily from the story The Dream Quest of Unknown Ghasts. The creatures live in the underworld part of the Dreamlands, in the Vale of Panath. A Ghast is a big, humanoid animal and has a repulsive general look. They had greyish, rubbery skin with elongated limbs and faces that were a grotesque hybrid of man and beast, boasting gaping maws full of teeth. Their eyes would be small and beady, even for their unsettling visage. Ghasts are carnivorous and highly aggressive, attacking everything that dares get in their way. Their insatiable hunger and pack mentality make them relentless hunters. Mostly, the creature is nocturnal, adding that element of fear from the dark and unknown. The guttural, eerie noises they emit could paralyze their intended prey from fear, even before they strike, an added layer to the terror psychologically. They represent one of several terrors that reside in the Dreamlands world one reaches through dreams. Their presence in the Vale of Panath, a large, dark pit full of bones and remains of their victims, completely perfectly underscores the perils of the Dreamlands. The Ghasts are an addition to an ecosystem of terror so elaborately crafted by Lovecraft to create a sense of cosmic dread. The impact of Ghasts on the characters and humanity in Lovecraft stories runs deep. They serve, among other things, as a reminder of the unknown, the unknowable things that evoke primeval fear in man, being hunted by something much stronger and noisier. Their very existence calls into question the sanity of the poor who stumble upon them. Often it leads to madness or death. In The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, Randolph Carter had to surmount the perilous Vale of Panath, a place where the Ghast resided, an obstacle to this character's attainment of forbidden knowledge. Chthonians. Chthonians are subterranean tentacled horrors that have been introduced to the world by Brian Lumley in furtherance of H.P. Lovecraft's mythos. These creatures are mostly known through Lumley's The Burrowers Beneath and other subsequent works. Usually, a Chthonian resembles a huge worm with an abundance of tentacles and a gross, amorphous body. Chthonians dwell extensively throughout the Earth's crust, burrowing through rock and soil with ease. All too often, their appearance is steeped in writhing tentacles, nightmarish, and their ever-shifting form defies the conventional anatomy that fosters undue terror in those viewing it. The most terrifying features of Chthonians are their massive size, that they are subterranean, and that they possess the power to easily manipulate Earth with such ease. They're capable of creating massive earthquakes, sinkholes, and several other various disturbances on Earth, making them more of a force of nature than that of a monstrous entity. Their tentacles were not only physically strong, but also had a malevolent intelligence with which they could search out their prey and crush it with appalling precision. The most terrifying thing is that the Chthonians can perceive vibrations and motions miles away, allowing them to track and hunt the quarry with unerring precision. That makes them almost impossible to escape once they become targets. Besides living underground, they can attack suddenly, coming from the ground and dragging the victims into the dark profundity. The Chthonians have served and continue to serve to symbolize the forces beneath the earth, unknown and uncontrollable. They typified fear of what might be beneath our feet, hidden from sight, but always there, potentially catastrophic. Their existence told humankind that their perception of safety and stability was just that, a perception, and that even the ground on which we stood was not as solid as one would think it to be. The Chthonians have a huge influence on the characters and also on humanity inside the mythos. Many times they inspire dread and helplessness, since they're representative of a force that's ancient, can't be reasoned out or prevailed upon with ease. All other interactions with Chthonians have generally brought madness, destruction, and death, reiterating the Lovecraftian theme of insignificance before cosmic horrors. In the works of Lumley, Chthonians are but part of a pantheon of ancient beings before humanity that consider us nothing. The constant geological chaos reminds us of how fragile and impermanent human civilization is. With the powers of earth manipulation, the Chthonians are a very unique and terrifying addition to the Lovecraftian mythos, really hammering in that factor of the unknown and uncontrollable forces lying just beneath the surface of our world. Gaki. Gaki is one of the more obscure but incredibly unsettling entities born from the Cthulhu mythos, a shared universe created by H.P. Lovecraft and extended by other authors. A creation of Ramsey Campbell in his short story, The Inhabitant of the Lake, Gaki is an ancient alien creature that inhabited a lake within the Severn Valley of England. Large, slug-like, with metallic spines extending from the body, this monster is huge. The spines are not simply for display, but for rather insidious purposes used for impaling and enslaving their victims. The metallic spines inject venom, which turns them into undead servants, also called servants of Gaki. While their memories and personalities remain, they are completely at the bidding of Gaki, which makes them a terrifying mix between the familiar and the monstrous. This process is very painful, with victims completely aware of what's happening to them, adding layers to psychological horror upon physical torment. Another aspect of Gaki that's terrifying is its immortality and longevity, which it assures of its servants. This, while seeming a great boon, is a curse, since the servants just decay over centuries, with their bodies breaking down while their minds keep working. This eternal servitude and degradation make Gaki a singularly terrifying creature for the simple fact that he offers a fate worse than death. In Lovecraftian myth, Gaki is symbolic of parasitic control over an entity and further denotes the loss of free will. The enslaving capability and manipulation of human beings by the monster reflect broader themes of cosmic horror and the insignificance of humanity in the face of ancient, incomprehensible beings. Gaki's presence in the Severn Valley is such that it enforces a living nightmare among the local population, where Gaki creates a cult of followers who worship him in exchange for the promise of eternal life, but at a terrible hidden cost. The influence of Gaki stretches into the wider Cthulhu mythos. It connects with other great old ones and shows the interlinking in these elder beings. Atlak Naka. The terrifying Atlak Naka is a creation of Clark Ashton Smith, although it's been mainly affiliated with the Lovecraft universe, as Smith was a friend and correspondent of the American writer. It's a huge spider with a lot of human features on its face, and it resides deep in the dark caverns of the Dreamlands. Most of the known lore about Atlak Naka comes from the story The Seven Geeses, in which this creature is described as an ancient malevolent entity who weaves a great web between the waking world and the Dreamlands. Its origin is completely unknown, but it's assumed to be one of the great old ones, ancient gods older than human civilization that wield unimaginable powers. The most horrific features of Atlak Naka are in the grotesque appearance and sinister purpose. Its body is that of a giant spider with long spindly legs and a bulbous abdomen covered in coarse dark hair. It's only the human-like face that makes it more disconcerting. However, taking something so inherently known and alienating it completely is deeply disturbing. The face is described by many as expressionless, cold, unblinking eyes seeming to pierce into the very soul of any who would dare look upon it. Its powers are equally horrific. Atlak Naka is a master weaver, spinning a prodigious, intricate web that bridges the chasm between the waking world and the Dreamlands. This web is not only a physical thing, but indeed metaphysical. It can ensnare the souls of any that stray too close to its vicinity. The web was said to be almost invisible, making it an insidious trap for the unwary. The victims fell, having their essence consumed to sustain the ancient spider. With this, the Atlak Naka was a particularly important gatekeeper between the dimensions. His web linked the waking world to the Dreamlands, an ethereal place of dreams and nightmares existing parallel to our own. For this very virtue, Atlak Naka became an instrument of the cosmic order, a fragile balance between both worlds. The existence of the creature underlines that barriers between dimensions are fragile, and this boundary might be breached at any time. Atlak Naka has a profound influence on the characters and even on humanity. It's seen that the creature drives many people to big-time madness due to its horrible appearance and existential terror. The web it weaves brings to mind that thin veil that separates reality from the unknown, a very central theme of Lovecraftian horror. Brown Jenkins. Brown Jenkins is the malevolent or even wicked creature from H.P. Lovecraft's mythos. This fearsome creature came out in a short story called The Dreams in the Witch House. The brown skin, the rat-like feature with decidedly humanly offending visage, and the tiny hands described this malevolent entity. Its origin apparently comes from the witch Keziah Mason, who was able to travel through dimensions by a pact with dark forces. She has Brown Jenkins as her familiar, a creature that was tied to her through dark magic and ancient rites. The most salient features of Brown Jenkins are a body, if rat-like, with a human face and hands, evoking an uncanny and deeply unsettling image that touches on primal fears of corruption and unnaturalness, and the sinister role that it plays in the witch's dark ritual. He can also move with ease through dimensions and time, making him an omnipresent threat. Thus, it's capable of suddenly appearing and disappearing, making the escape from this monster utterly impossible. This ability is especially terrible because it means that Brown Jenkins can infiltrate the most secure and private spaces, including the dreams of its victims. Most often, the creature can be seen as an omen of death because it presages the arrival of Keziah Mason or another disaster. Apart from Brown Jenkins, another terror is his involved participation in witch rituals. It's known to participate actively in Keziah Mason's dark practices, which usually involve human sacrifice and some other horrible acts. The creature has also been described chewing on the bodies of the victim, adding a layer of visceral horror to its already terrifying presence. Yet its small size and agility give it an added advantage in the witch's malevolent tasks through cracks and crevices to its targets. Brown Jenkins is a crucial link between the everyday reality of men and the eldritch dimensions of their malevolent ancient gods. Its existence underlined the tenuous veil between our reality and the alien realms, one of the major themes that dominate so much of Lovecraft's work. The dimensions that this creature could traverse reopened how fragile human conception and control over the universe were. The Brown Jenkins accordingly has profound symbolic effects on the characters and humanity. It's some sort of existential horror that permeates Lovecraft's stories, that indeed there are entities beyond human comprehension and control that lurk just outside the edges of our reality. Its interaction with Keziah Mason and its involvement in her dark ritual point to those ancient and malevolent powers that one can invoke by invoking forbidden knowledge. In The Dreams in the Witch House, Brown Jenkins' presence in the story drives Walter Gilman to the brink of madness. The appearances that take place in his dreams and any role involved in the witch's plan create an atmosphere of relentless terror. Gilman's ultimate fate, influenced by his encounters with Brown Jenkins, is a grim testament to the creature's power and the overarching themes of Lovecraft's mythos. Spiders of Leng. The Spiders of Leng are some mysterious and chilling beings that reach their root from the mythos by H.P. Lovecraft. These creatures are best confronted in the collaborative works of Lovecraft, The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, and The Whisperer in Darkness. The Spiders of Leng are gigantic, intelligent arachnids dwelling on the Plateau of Leng, which is a strange and alien place living in the Dreamlands, a parallel dimension reached through dreams. These spiders aren't just giant versions of their earthly cousins, but manifest a sort of sinister intelligence and malevolent nature. They're described as much larger than any terrestrial spider, and some accounts say as large as elephants. Their sheer size makes them physically imposing to overpower most beings they come across. Whereas common spiders are not, the Spiders of Leng are highly intelligent, capable of great complex thought and communication, even to the point of developing alliances with other malevolent entities. It's this intelligence that makes them so capricious, far more dangerous than any mindless predator. The webs of the Spiders of Leng are incredibly strong, imbued with a supernatural quality, apt to trap the soul of anyone who gets ensnared within them. Any poor victim who gets stuck in the web is often eternally tormented, well past the threshold of death. They tend to be cruel, sadistic, and malevolent spiders, taking great joy in other beings' misery. They're known to catch prey and then torture it, drawing out the agony for as long as they can. It's this sort of sadistic nature that adds an element of psychological horror to their physical threat. Their origin is from the Plateau of Leng, a place that defies natural laws, which in our world are themselves unknowable, and adds to the unknown. This very existence shatters the boundaries that reality imposes upon them, making them a symbol of cosmic horror. Their presence in the Dreamlands acts like a grim reminder of how thin the veil is that separates our world from terrors beyond. The Spiders of Leng reflect characters and humanity by personifying the existential dread at the root of his works. This reflects the futility of man against ancient malevolent forces that exist beyond human comprehension. Encounters with such creatures often lead to madness or death, underlining the futility of resisting the cosmic horrors that pervade Lovecraft's universe. Mordigian. Mordigian is a god in the Cthulhu mythos, which is a shared universe of cosmic entities created by H.P. Lovecraft and then expanded by a huge number of other authors. Native to the fictional city of Zul-Bar-Ser, Mordigian is most well known from The Charnel God by Clark Ashton Smith. He's described as a huge amoeba-like god who, more often than not, manifests as a dark, amorphous shape tuned by an insatiable hunger for the dead. Mordigian's worshippers are the ghouls, who serve him by gathering corpses to present him as food. Mordigian's most terrifying feature would be his overall hunger for the dead, in which he consumes them grotesquely and horribly. The amorphous, shadowy form this deity makes only adds to its terror, since it can change its shape in ways incomprehensible and unpredictable. This lack of shape makes Mordigian an embodiment of the unknown and unknowable, common feature of Lovecraftian horror. Associated with death and decay, his fear factor is further advanced, as he represents the ultimate end that every living thing will have to face. Still, Mordigian's servants, the ghouls, are almost as terrifying in that they're undead creatures desecrating graves and feasting upon human flesh, adding another layer of visceral horror to the mythos. Mordigian is the grim harbinger of the inevitability of death and the futility of resistance against such a nemesis. Because the deity eats the dead, his function places him in a special position within the Cthulhu mythos, directly interacting with the mortal realm by way of consumption of the remains of the deceased. Such interaction would show how thin the line is between life and death, common theme in Lovecraftian horror. Mordigian's effect on the characters, and he, as differing tiers of humanity, runs deep. The presence of such a deity instills in them a deep-seated fear of death and the unknown, which makes characters go to desperate measures to avoid its clutches. The ghouls of Mordigian make the reality and power of such a deity real by desecrating graves and instilling fear in the living. This leads to the fear of death and the unknown, often driving the characters to madness, a common effect within Lovecraftian tales. LUKTH. The name is LUKTH, but the birth womb of the Great Old Ones could pretty much describe it. This creature is from the wide mythos that was first created by the master himself, H.P. Lovecraft, and then expanded by other writers. It's primarily known from the Cthulhu mythos, a shared universe of horror fiction. LUKTH is a huge amorphous entity that usually manifests itself as a writhing mass of tentacles and eyes. It's ever-changing in its form, which can't be conceived of or described accurately. The creature lives within the vacuum of space, extremely distant from the plane of humanity, and is believed to be the father of several other creatures in mythology. Without a doubt, the most frightening thing about LUKTH is that it's a cosmic birthing entity capable capable of giving birth to terrors beyond counting. Its incomprehensible form and sheer scale evoke a sense of existential dread. In that respect, Cthulhu is indirectly responsible for many other terrifying entities populating Lovecraftian lore simply because it can give birth to other great old ones. Adding to the horror of the creature is that it can't be pinned to an unchanging form because it breaks most of the natural laws of biology and physics. If anything at all, it would be referred to as an abomination beyond human comprehension. The plane of reality that LUKTH exists in means that most of its actions can't be understood, but its primary purpose as a birthing entity suggests that the drive behind it for the propagation of its kind and to unleash more horrors into the universe is relentless. This creation and destruction rule is no doubt common in Lovecraftian horror. It points towards something like the futility of human resistance against such cosmic forces. In the Cthulhu mythos, LUKTH is considered an ancestor of many of the great old ones. Most consider it a basic building block of the cosmic hierarchy, its existence serving to illustrate a premise of cosmic horror, as well as the general insignificance of humanity to ancient godlike beings. The creature's ability to spawn other horrors enhances this idea of a constantly expanding universe of malevolent entities, all with various terrifying attributes. The existence of LUKTH in the mythos helps to heighten the sense of dread and hopelessness that permeates Lovecraftian fiction. Characters who find or otherwise learn about LUKTH are driven mad by the size and scope of its existence. This knowledge that there exists a creature that continues to spawn others of its abominable brethren only serves to reinforce the concept of humanity's insignificance as but a brief and minor blip in a universe full of ancient, malevolent forces. Unspeakable Possessor. This is some kind of malignant creature that comes from the mythos of the master in cosmic horror, H.P. Lovecraft. Conjured from the darkest corners of Lovecraft's imagination, this creature is mostly well known from a story entitled The Shadow Out of Time. Unspeakable Possessor is essentially an ethereal creature that's more often described as a kind of formless and shadowy presence, capable of infiltrating victims' minds and bodies. It's something beyond the realm of physical entities, which makes it elusive and terrifying. But probably the most fearsome feature of the Unspeakable Possessor is that the creature invades and controls the minds of its victims. Other than the physical terror, which is the signature of many Lovecraftian horrors, the psychic manipulation affected by this creature forms a newer paradigm of terror. It can possess individuals, erase their memories, and replace them with its own malevolent intentions. The loss of the self and autonomy associated with this touches deep-seated fears, because it takes away that which is fundamentally human in a person. Besides, the Unspeakable will be able to hypnotize anything from reality via illusions and manipulation of perception, with the express purpose of driving its victims into total madness. Often its presence is characterized by feelings of overwhelming dread and paranoia, as those affected can never truly be sure what is real and what is a product of the creature's influence. This power makes the Unspeakable Possessor uniquely terrifying in its distortion of reality and sanity. The Unspeakable Possessor symbolizes the fragility of the human mind and how thin a layer exists between reality and madness. Characters and humankind are deeply affected because it represents the ultimate loss of control and existential dread through being consumed by an unknowable force. Another underlying theme, and a very integral one at that, is cosmic insignificance, something that the creature brings into play through the method of possession and manipulation. The Unspeakable Possessor's effect on both individual victims and entire communities extends to civilizations themselves. In The Shadow Out of Time, the creature is connected to the great race of Yith, an older and more powerful race of beings with a unique ability to intersperse their consciousness through time and space. It's for this reason that it was such a formidable foe, even against the extremely strong Yithians, who themselves were great masters of mental manipulation. Tsathoggua, the Sleeper of Unkai, is a god created for the Cthulhu mythos, a common universe for creations by H.P. Lovecraft and further developed by other writers. This creature is the creation of Clark Ashton Smith. Tsathoggua is usually described as a terrible toad-like creature with bat features and a thick furry body. His eyes are half closed, making the creature look drowsy all the time. While the main myth of Tsathoggua is told in Smith's story, The Tale of Satampra Zeros, it dwells, he says, therein in the subterranean realm of Unkai beneath the Earth's surface. Most terrifying to all who know of Tsathoggua is its hunger, unending and insatiable, and how simple it makes the process of consuming its victims. It's extremely sluggish by nature, but will make quick work of anything within its reach. This juxtaposition of apparent laziness and sudden voracious action creates a sense of unpredictable danger. Moreover, Tsathoggua can summon other monstrous entities, like the formless spawn, and control them, an added feature to his terror. Those minions, amorphous and almost indestructible, carry out the will of Tsathoggua and spread fear and chaos. Chaos. Another terrifying attribute of Tsathoggua is the ancient and alien intelligence that he possesses. Besides most of the other deities in the Cthulhu mythos, Tsathoggua doesn't feel malevolence or even the need to dominate. He exists in a state of unheeding hunger, hence he's an uncontrollable and unpredictable force. That's what makes Tsathoggua uniquely terrifying. His utter indifference to human life and suffering means he can neither be reasoned with nor placated. Tsathoggua ranks as one of those great old ones, beings that have existed since well before humanity first trod this earth with great and incomprehensible powers. Its mere presence turns the fabric of human understanding into a caricature, thus displaying the insignificance of humanity within the grand cosmic scheme of things. Tsathoggua in the mythos serves to point out a specific reality of the ancient sleeping horrors beneath the surface of the world, waiting to awaken and reclaim their dominion. The influences of Tsathoggua are great on the characters or humanity. Those who see it or its minions usually meet with madness or death. Its deity worshippers tend to be cultists in search of power or forbidden knowledge, attracted by the promise of dark wisdom and strength. This association often is their downfall, since Tsathoggua awaits indifferently the fall of that end. Baki. The Baki are alien creatures born from the mind of H.P. Lovecraft, then expanded by August Derleth. They're most famous for their role in the mythos of the Great Old Ones in stories like The Festival and The Hounds of Tindalos. Generally speaking, the Baki can be described as great bat-like monsters with most of the characteristics of insects, including membrane wings, segmented bodies, and multiple lensed eyes. They're grotesquely avian, insectoid, and reptilian combined. This makes them a nightmare to behold. Many times they have an overwhelming appearance of dread and otherworldliness, but they're not bound by natural laws, as in our universe. Most salient and terrifying, the Baki are alien, able to traverse large expanses of time and space. They're often summoned by dark rituals, and are said to be able to transport their summoners across interstellar distances, adding a touch of cosmic horror to their existence. The insectoid and avian features, with enormous size and membranous wings, present a horrifying sight that simply goes against the natural order of things. What gives them such a unique terror factor is the ability of the Baki to exist in a space vacuum, and their complete immunity to the physical limitations of the world we know. They can also emit an ultrasonic, unearthly screech that sends humans into madness, further pinning them as harbingers of chaos and terror. In Baki, Lovecraftian lore takes a minion and transport role of the Great Old Ones and other cosmic entities. They're often conjured by cultists and sorcerers who wish to use their ability for space-time travel. Because of this, they hold a significant position in the mythos, as they act like a bridge between the human world and the incomprehensible realms of the Great Old Ones. The Baki are intelligent and thus can follow complex commands. They're not mindless beasts, which makes them even more dangerous. Their impact upon humanity would be most profound, as the mere fact of their existence would break primary human comprehension. Encounters with the Baki more often than not drive a man into madness, driven by an inability of the human brain to confront their obvious alien nature. They are the embodiment of the futility of humanity before the universe. Of course, one ongoing concept in Lovecraft's works. Baki is also a reminder, the tenuous veil that separates our world from the chaotic and caring universe beyond which wait for ancient malevolent beings. Yog-Sothoth. Yog-Sothoth is a cosmic being from the H.P. Lovecraft mythos, well documented originally through works such as the Dich Horror in the case of Charles Dexter Ward. This creature is described as all-engulfing, omniscient, and outside the bounds of time and space. Yog-Sothoth is conceptualized as a mass of shining spheres, forever changing and pulsating, which makes him an indefinable figure. It's shapeless, and manifestations of this phenomenon may vary, with the appearances typically described as an iridescent mass of bubbles or a light and energy vortex. And Yog-Sothoth is indeed omniscient and omnipresent, being everywhere at every moment in time. While other entities may be imprisoned in certain loci or dimensions, Yog-Sothoth exists in every place and time in the same instant. This makes it a being literally beyond human conception, one able to twist reality itself to its will. The ability to see and affect events throughout the space-time continuum makes it a godlike figure, unknowable and unknowing beneath man's feeble comprehension. Another aspect of Yog-Sothoth, which becomes horrific, is that this creature acts as a gatekeeper to other dimensions, serving as a key. Yog-Sothoth knows the gate. Yog-Sothoth is the gate. Yog-Sothoth is the key and guardian of the gate. It had the power to open up portals toward other realms and thereby allowed other eldritch horrors into this world. The mere fact that such a monster would even be capable of unleashing untold terrors upon mankind is enough in itself to evoke deep-seated dread. Equally disturbing are the interactions of Yog-Sothoth with human beings. Those who seek its knowledge or power usually pay in terrible coin, often often losing their sanity or becoming pawns in its incomprehensible schemes. The motives of the entity are inscrutable, and its actions often result in catastrophic consequences for those who dare summon or contact it. Yog-Sothoth is an outer god, an entity outside of the human universe, yet far stronger than the great old ones. He is central within the cosmic hierarchy, is thus a common invocation in spells and rituals of those seeking forbidden knowledge and power. Yog-Sothoth represents the ultimate unknown, a being whose very existence challenges the fundamental principles of reality and human understanding. Many characters who happen upon it or even learn about Yog-Sothoth find their perceptions of the universe irrevocably changed, and often enough led to madness and existential despair. But the fact that this entity can play with time and space simply means it pulls influences from across eras and locations to make it a highly pervasive threat. Wilbur Whitley. Wilbur Whitley is the protagonist in H.P. Lovecraft's short story The Dich Horror, first published in 1929. On February 2, 1913, Wilbur was born in Dunwich, Massachusetts, to Lavinia Whitley, a deformed albino woman, and the alien entity known as Yog-Sothoth. His features are an uncanny, monstrous meld of human and animal-like, inordinately tall and mature for a boy of his age, with an uncommonly goatish face, elongated limbs, and a body covered in coarse, dark hair. His rapid growth and peculiar appearance make him an object of fear and suspicion among the townsfolk. Thus, the most terrifying traits of Wilbur Whitley were directly linked with his hybrid nature and the dark powers inherited from his alien father. Physical and intellectual development has been something really extraordinary and at the same time very unsettling in its own way. When 10 years old, he already appeared as a full-grown man and possessed knowledge never known to mankind. The reputation of being able to communicate and summon eldritch entities further adds to the aura of terror in Wilbur's character. He's deeply involved in occult practices, often poring over ancient forbidden tomes like the Necronomicon. The most terrible thing about Wilbur, however, is his ultimate ambition to wrench open a gateway for the Old Ones, cosmic deities of immense power, into our world. His stress and relentless pursuit of this objective, coupled with his inhuman ability, make him truly formidable and terrifying. Being only a foreshadowing of terrors yet to come, the twin brother, an invisible monstrous creature, only adds to the horror. Wilbur Whitley constitutes a crucial link between humanity and the incomprehensible horrors of the cosmos. His existence underlines the motif of forbidden knowledge and the catastrophic consequences of meddling with forces beyond human understanding. Wilbur's actions in the Dich Horror set the stage for a confrontation between the mundane world and the eldritch horrors lurking just beyond its veil. Wilbur is more than the sum of his actions. He is an avatar of the existential terror that permeates Lovecraft's work. The mere fact of his existence speaks to the faulty assumption of human superiority and the tenuousness of our reality. The Dich Horror. The Dich Horror is a monstrous entity from H.P. Lovecraft's mythos, better known through the short story The Dich Horror, published first in 1929. It's considered to be the creature born of an unholy union between the human Lavinia Whitley and the cosmic entity Yog-Sothoth. The appearance of this creature was never really described throughout the story, thereby giving it a more terrifying mystique. It's suggested to be huge and invisible, a monster with several eyes, tentacles, and other grotesque features. The most common means of showing its existence is by the trail of destruction it leaves behind, and in some weird extraterrestrial sounds. What really makes the Dich Horror such a terror is that it can be invisible, an unseen terror of an attack. This invisibility, an attribute as physical as it is a psychological weapon, would instill an unearthly feeling of dread and helpless suspension in any human being who crossed its path. The enormity of its size and strength leads it to commit touchdown destruction by tearing buildings and landscapes asunder with ease. Attachment to Yog-Sothoth, an existence outside the time and space bondage, confers powers of another world upon this creature. What makes the horror so peculiarly terrifying is that such terrible things can occur, and meanwhile, they remain hidden, since the fear of the unknown magnifies the menace. The Dich Horror represents the insignificance of man before powers beyond his universe. It's the spawn of forbidden knowledge and unnatural rituals, showing the dangers of delving into arcane mysteries. The effect on the characters is deep, with a tragic and horrifying chain of events that includes the desperate attempt to banish the creature from our world. The Dich Horror is more than the immediate story. It epitomizes rather the recurring Lovecraftian theme of the thin veil lying between our reality and the incomprehensible cosmos. Its place in the mythos underlines the fragility of human civilization, the ever-pressing possibility of forces beyond our control. Marvelous verdict: Lovecraftian horror stories that feature the presence of ancient malign beings that exist beyond the scope of humanity. Spanning a cosmic scale, the sheer terror of Cthulhu and the insidious manipulations of Nyarlathotep represent manifestations of existential dread and cosmic insignificance. These horrors will distort the very fabric of reality and leave protagonists and readers alike wrestling with the fragility of human existence. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.